The grocery store was busy that evening, the kind of crowd where carts bumped and kids whined in the cereal aisle. Jenna Cole tried to move quickly, her son waiting at home, but by the time she reached the checkout, her chest was tight. The line behind her stretched long, and when the cashier called out the total, her hand shook as she slid the worn EBT card through the reader. The machine beeped once, her leg locked. Just like that, frozen. Her knees stiffened, her heel dug into the floor, and she could feel the heat of impatient eyes burning into her back. Someone sighed loudly. Another shifted their cart with a scrape that made her flinch. She bent to grab a box of pasta that had slipped from the counter, but her body refused to move. Her arms tingled, her breath stuck halfway in her throat. The cashier, a teenager with tired eyes, just stared, waiting for her to fix herself, waiting for the line to keep moving. And then, without a word, someone stepped forward. A man in a work shirt smudged with dust steadied the cart before it rolled into the candy display. He didn't make a joke, didn't ask questions. He just crouched slightly, his voice quiet but steady. "Take your time. You're fine." Jenna blinked hard. The machine finally accepted her card on the second try. She packed the groceries quickly, cheeks burning. But when she turned, the man was still there. Not staring, just waiting until she could move again. At the sliding doors, he caught up, a folded flyer in his hand. "Community Centre runs a warm water class on Tuesday nights," he said, almost shy. "Helps with movement. I volunteer sometimes, no pressure." Jenna muttered thanks, stuffed the paper deep into her bag, and hurried to the car. By the time she pulled into her apartment lot, she had already decided to toss it. Another program, another promise. She crumpled the flyer, dropped it in the trash on the way upstairs, and tried to forget the whole thing. But that night, when the apartment was dark and quiet, she found herself standing barefoot in the kitchen, holding that same flyer in her hand. She didn't even remember pulling it out. The paper was wrinkled, smudged from the trash, but the words were still clear. Water therapy, open to all. She stared at it for a long time, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence, and for the first time in months, something small and unwanted stirred inside her. Not anger, not shame, something else. Hope. The next afternoon, Jenna sat at the kitchen table, the phone pressed to her ear, listening to the endless loop of hold music. Insurance again. The recorded voice kept repeating that her request for more physical therapy sessions had been denied. Not medically necessary, they said, as if they lived in her skin, as if they knew what it felt like when her leg locked and strangers rolled their eyes. Bills were spread across the table, rent due in a week, the electric already past notice. Jenna rubbed her temple, trying to focus, but the words from the other end were just noise. She hung up before they could transfer her for the third time. From the hallway, sneakers squeaked against the old floorboards. Her son, Lucas, 12 years old and growing faster than her paychecks could keep up with, leaned on the doorframe. He held a poster board tucked under his arm, a science project waiting for supplies. "Did they say yes this time?" he asked quietly. Jenna forced a smile. "Not yet." Lucas dropped the board on the table and sat down, fidgeting with the edge of the paper. He avoided her eyes for a long moment, then asked the one question she wasn't ready for. "Mum, do you think someday you'll be able to come to my basketball game? Like, actually sit in the bleachers, not just wait in the car?" The words cut sharper than any denial letter. Jenna opened her mouth, but nothing came. She wanted to tell him yes, to promise him more than just rides and excuses, but her throat closed. The truth sat heavy. She didn't know if she would ever walk up those gym steps again. Lucas studied her face, as if he already knew the answer. Then he gave a small shrug, the kind kids use when they're trying to be tougher than they feel. "It's okay," he whispered. "Just wondered." He stood and padded down the hall to his room, leaving her alone with the pile of bills and a silence that hurt more than any insult from a stranger. Jenna sat still for a long time, staring at the wrinkled flyer she had fished back out of the trash. Her hand hovered over her phone. Finally, she typed out a short message to the number at the bottom. "Is it okay if I just watch?" She hit send before she could change her mind. The community centre smelled faintly of chlorine and old tile, the kind of scent that clung to your skin even after you left. Jenna hesitated in the doorway, clutching her tote bag like it might shield her from the stairs. The pool room was warm, steam curling along the windows, the hum of dehumidifiers filling the space. A handful of people were already in the water, moving slowly under the watch of a licensed therapist. She told herself she was only here to watch. Just watch. But the therapist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense voice, gestured her closer. "You can sit by the rail if you want," she said. "No pressure." Jenna slipped off her sneakers and sat on the edge, her legs dangling above the water. Her heart raced as if she were about to dive into the ocean instead of a heated community pool. Ahmad was there too, wearing a faded volunteer shirt. He handed out towels, checked the clock, moved quietly in the background. He didn't look at her like she was broken. That helped more than she expected. The exercises looked almost silly from where she sat. Gentle toe taps, slow arm sweeps underwater, breathing timed with the ripple of the surface. Nothing dramatic, no miracle transformations. But the people in the pool seemed calmer, lighter, like the water gave them permission to try without fear of falling. "Want to give it a shot?" the therapist asked. Jenna shook her head. "I just came to see." "That's fine," the woman replied. "Even watching can teach your body something." But as the class went on, Jenna found herself sliding lower until her feet touched the warm water. She gripped the rail tight, pulse thudding. The therapist encouraged softly, "Just lift your toes. That's it. No one's timing you." Her toes twitched, then tapped against the pool floor. Barely anything, but it was something. For the first time in months, Jenna didn't feel like her body was betraying her. It was listening, even if only for a second. When the session ended, she hurried to change, embarrassed by the damp sweat on her forehead. On her way out, she stopped at the vending machine. She fumbled for coins, swiped her card, but the screen flashed red, declined. Her face flushed hot. Before she could walk away, Ahmad stepped up. "I think it only takes singles," he said casually, sliding $1 in. The machine clunked, a bag of chips dropped, and he handed it to her. "You can get the next one." He didn't smile like a saviour, didn't make it a scene. Just simple, easy, like neighbours helping neighbours. Jenna nodded, clutching the bag to her chest, and for the first time that day, she didn't feel entirely alone. By the end of the week, Jenna almost felt like she had found a fragile rhythm. Work at the deli, dinner with Lucas, evenings quiet enough to hear herself think, and on Tuesdays, the pool. But peace never lasted long. On Friday, her phone buzzed with a notification from Facebook. She opened it without thinking and froze. Someone from her old bus route had posted a grainy picture of her sitting in the driver's seat from years ago, captioned with cruel words. "Faked her injury to get out of work. Must be nice living off the system." The comments spilled underneath, piling up like stones. "I knew it. She always looked lazy. Tax dollars at work." Jenna's chest tightened. Her finger hovered over the screen, but she couldn't bring herself to read more. She set the phone face down, but the words were already carved deep. When Lucas came into the kitchen for a snack, he caught the look on her face. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing," she said too quickly. He frowned. "Is it about your legs again?" Her throat ached. She wanted to tell him no, but instead, tears slipped out before she could stop them. Lucas stepped closer, awkward in the way only a 12-year-old boy can be, and slid a spiral notebook across the table. "Here," he said softly, "write it down, like progress, even if it's just one word." Jenna stared at him. The notebook was cheap, its cover bent, a math worksheet still tucked in the back. She opened to a blank page, picked up a pen and hesitated. Finally, she wrote a single word, "Still here." That night, she almost didn't go to the pool. The thought of people whispering, staring, wondering if the rumours were true, her stomach knotted at the idea. But as she stood by the door with her bag in hand, she remembered Lucas's voice. "Write it down, even if it's just one word." So she went. When she walked into the pool room, a couple of heads turned. She imagined them all knowing, all judging, though no one said a word. Her cheeks burned anyway. The therapist welcomed her like always, calm and steady. Ahmed handed her a towel without comment. Nothing had changed, and yet everything inside her was trembling. She gripped the rail tighter than before, water rising to her waist. Her legs shook, but she stayed in the pool. For the first time in months, she wasn't running away from the whispers. And when she managed the smallest movement, a slow tap of her foot against the pool floor. She whispered the words under her breath, the ones she had written in Lucas's notebook. Still here. That Tuesday, Jenna came early again. The pool was quiet, the water rippling softly under the overhead lights. She sat at the edge, notebook in her tote bag, trying to believe she belonged here. The therapist placed a small towel flat on the pool floor. "All I want," she explained, "is for you to drag this with your heel. Doesn't matter how far, even the smallest movement counts." Jenna stared at the towel. It looked ridiculous, like a child's game. After everything she'd been through, after months of locked knees and frozen days, the challenge in front of her was a scrap of fabric. She pressed her heel down, tried to drag. Nothing. Her legs shook, her stomach twisted. She tried again, still nothing. Heat rose to her cheeks. She could feel the old voice creeping back. "See, you'll never move again." The therapist's voice broke the spiral. "Don't force it, just breathe. Your body remembers, even when your mind doubts." Jenna inhaled deeply, let the warm water hold her. This time she pressed her heel slowly, carefully, and the towel shifted just the tiniest bit, maybe half an inch, no more than the width of a fingernail. But it moved. Her eyes shot open. She thought she had imagined it, but Ahmad was standing by the rail. He nodded once, steady and sure. "Mark it," he said. "That's yours." The words hit harder than any applause, because it was hers, small, fragile, but real. That night at the kitchen table, Jenna opened the notebook Lucas had given her. Under the words, "Still here," she wrote carefully, half an inch, about the size of a fingernail, but mine. Lucas leaned over, curious. "That's good?" he asked. Jenna looked at him, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. "It's more than good. It means my body's still listening." Lucas grinned, proud in the way only a son can be. And for the first time in a long while, the silence in their apartment felt lighter, like something had shifted, small, but enough to matter. The storm came in fierce, rattling windows and shaking the old building. Rain pounded hard against the glass, thunder rolling close enough to make the walls hum. Then, with a flicker and a pop, the lights went out. The steady hum of the fridge died, leaving the apartment in uneasy silence. Jenna sat frozen on the couch. No power meant no elevator. And with their apartment on the 3rd floor, that also meant stairs, the one place she had avoided for years. A knock came at the door. Mrs. Hernandez from next door stood there, worried. "My brother's insulin needs to get to the ground floor. No fridge, no time." Jenna's chest tightened. Stairs, always the stairs. Before she could answer, Lucas was already at her side. "We can do it," he said firmly, clutching the small cooler she handed him. His voice was steady, but his eyes darted nervously toward the dark stairwell. The air in the stairwell smelled of damp concrete, heavy with the storm outside. A faint red glow from the exit sign lit the way down. Jenna gripped both railings, her legs stiff, her breath already uneven. The first step was fire in her thighs. She clenched the rails, forcing herself down. Lucas moved just ahead of her, arms wrapped around the cooler, his sneakers squeaking against the wet floor. After a few steps, he stopped to catch his breath, cheeks flushed. "You okay?" Jenna whispered. He nodded quickly, though his chest was rising fast. "Yeah, just heavy. We've got this, Mum." Together they kept going, her legs trembling, his small arms tightening around the weight of the cooler. Halfway down, Jenna wanted to quit, to sit on the landing and let someone else finish. But she saw her son's face, sweaty and determined, refusing to give up. If he could keep going, so could she. Step by shaky step, they reached the bottom. Mrs. Hernandez's brother met them with a flood of thanks, but Jenna barely heard. All she could see was Lucas, sweaty hair stuck to his forehead, grinning like he'd just won a championship game. The climb back up was slower, both of them breathing hard, but when they collapsed on the couch at last, the weight of what they'd done settled in. Jenna opened her notebook with trembling hands and wrote, 14 steps, hard, messy, hours. Lucas leaned over, still catching his breath. "You're stronger than you think," he murmured. She looked at him, tears in her tired eyes. "So are you." The next session at the community pool felt different. Jenna had carried the victory of the stairwell with her all week, the ache in her thighs like a hidden medal. She showed up early again, her notebook tucked under her arm, ready to add another small win. But when she walked in, she noticed Ahmad sitting on the bench near the lockers, shoulders hunched, his volunteer shirt rumpled like he hadn't bothered to iron it. He wasn't handing out towels or adjusting the clock like usual, he was just staring at the floor. "You okay?" Jenna asked quietly. He gave a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Lost some hours at my night job. They cut routes. Fewer deliveries, fewer paychecks." He shrugged, trying to brush it off, but the heaviness in his voice gave him away. Jenna hesitated. For months she had been the one receiving help, the one who couldn't hold herself up without someone steady nearby. But something in her shifted. She reached into her bag, pulled out a simple sandwich wrapped in foil, and placed it beside him. "It's not much," she said, almost embarrassed. "Turkey and cheese, made an extra this morning." Ahmad looked at her, surprised. Then he chuckled softly. "Guess the tables turn, huh?" "Maybe they don't turn," she replied. "Maybe they just balance." For the first time since she'd met him, Ahmad looked less like the strong volunteer who always had the right words, and more like a regular man trying to get through his own storms. And for the first time, Jenna didn't feel like the weaker one. When class began, the therapist introduced a harder task. Standing at the rail outside the water, no buoyancy to help, just 3 steady breaths. Jenna's palms slicked with sweat. She clutched the rail, heart racing. Her body wobbled instantly, the floor feeling heavier than ever. 1 breath, 2. By the 3rd, her legs trembled so badly she thought she'd collapse. But she didn't, she held on. When she sat back down, shaking, Ahmad nodded toward her. "Mark it," he said with a quiet grin. And she did. In her notebook, beneath 14 steps, she wrote, 3 breaths on solid ground. That night, as she closed the notebook, Jenna realised something she hadn't allowed herself to believe before. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was moving forward. And she wasn't the only one. The school gym smelled like popcorn and poster paint, the kind of mix that clung to every open house and science fair in America. Folding tables lined the walls, each one covered with glitter letters and crooked diagrams. Parents squeezed into metal chairs, kids tugged at their sleeves, voices echoing off the high ceiling. Jenna hated crowds. She hated the eyes, the whispers, the unspoken questions. But tonight was Lucas's night. He had worked for weeks on his project, and she had promised herself she wouldn't let him down. She arrived early, found a spot near the back, and clutched her cane tight. Lucas's table was set up near the bleachers, his poster board written in messy marker, "How Muscles Remember." Beneath the title were pictures he had cut from magazines, a drawing of a brain, and even a stick figure with one leg scribbled darker than the other. When it was his turn to present, Jenna leaned forward, her heart pounding. Lucas explained how the body could forget movement, but relearn it slowly, like teaching a stubborn dog a new trick. He didn't mention his mum directly, but every word carried the weight of what he had watched at home. Then, from the crowd, a parent whispered too loudly, "Isn't that the bus driver who faked her injury? I saw it online." Jenna's stomach dropped. She wanted to disappear, to roll herself right out of that gym. Her grip on the cane tightened until her knuckles hurt. But before she could move, Lucas heard it too. He stopped mid-sentence, looked out at the crowd, then back at his mum. His voice steadied louder this time. "My project isn't just about muscles," he said. "It's about people who don't give up. My mum taught me that. She's the reason I finished this." The gym went quiet, no one whispered now. Jenna blinked back tears, her cheeks hot, but for once it wasn't shame burning through her. It was pride. When the fair ended, as she gathered Lucas's poster board, the assistant principal stopped by. She lowered her voice, careful not to be overheard. "Would you be willing," she asked gently, "to speak at our rec night on Friday? Just 5 minutes. We have kids who could use your story." Jenna froze. A dozen excuses rose in her throat, too busy, too tired, not ready. But then she saw Lucas, beaming at her, the poster board slipping from his hands. And for the first time, she didn't say no. The rec night at the school gym was small, nothing fancy. A few kids tossed basketballs under the buzzing lights, parents leaned on the bleachers, the faint smell of popcorn drifted from the concession stand. For most people, it was just another Friday night. For Jenna, it felt like the biggest stage she had ever stood on. She sat near the court, palms damp, cane by her side. The assistant principal handed her the microphone. "Just share whatever you feel comfortable with," she whispered. Jenna swallowed hard. Her legs threatened to lock, the way they always did when people watched. She glanced toward the crowd and spotted Lucas cross-legged on the floor, his eyes steady, waiting for her to try. Her voice shook at first. "I don't have a speech," she said softly, but the mic carried her words across the gym. "I only have what's true." The bouncing ball stopped, the room stilled. "I measure progress in inches. Some days I don't move forward at all. Some days I feel like I lose ground. But I keep showing up, because even an inch means something." Her throat tightened, but she pushed on. "I used to think being strong meant hiding how much it hurt. Now I think strength is just showing up anyway. Showing up." Silence. The kind that presses on your chest, waiting to see if you'll break. Then Jenna did something she hadn't planned. She set the microphone down, leaned her cane against the wall, and stepped carefully onto the court. Her heart pounded so loud she thought everyone could hear it. One step, then another. Her knees wobbled, her balance fragile. By the time she reached the painted baseline, the gym had gone silent, every eye following her slow walk. And then, suddenly, the kids couldn't hold it anymore. They leapt off the bleachers and rushed toward her, clapping and cheering at her side. Some jogged beside her, some stomped the court like it was the winning basket of the game. The sound swelled, high-pitched cheers, sneakers squeaking, parents rising to their feet. Jenna made it to the end of the line, breathless, shaking, but upright. A cluster of children surrounded her, clapping inches from her face, their excitement pure and unfiltered. For a moment she forgot the rumours, the doubt, the years of silence. She only heard joy. Lucas stood just beyond the crowd, his grin wide, tears shining in his eyes. He clapped louder than anyone, yelling, "That's my mom!" Later that night, a 15-second clip of her walk, kids spilling onto the court, cheering her like a hero, was posted on local Reddit. The caption read, "One brave mum." By morning, thousands had seen it. Some sent hearts, some shared their own stories. And one message came from a former bus driver states away. "I tried walking again today, because of you." Jenna read the words in the quiet of her kitchen, hand pressed to her mouth. For the first time in years, she realised her struggle wasn't just hers anymore. It had become something larger, something that could light the way for someone else. The morning light spilled across the apartment, soft and golden. Jenna sat at the kitchen table, her chipped coffee mug warm between her hands. For once, she didn't feel the heaviness of another day pressing down. Instead, there was a quiet hum inside her, a steady beat that felt almost like hope. At the community centre later that week, the mat was already unrolled when she walked in. Ahmad was there, leaning against the wall, giving her the space he knew she needed. The therapist smiled and nodded. "Whenever you're ready." Jenna set her cane aside. Her palms were damp, her chest tight, but she stood. Her legs shook, the old fear crawling in, but this time she didn't let it decide for her. She took one step, then another, 6 in all. Slow, uneven, fragile, but real. When she sank back down, trembling, Ahmad didn't clap or cheer. He just gave that steady grin and said, "Mark it." That evening, back at the table, Jenna opened her notebook. Beneath "Still here," 1/2 an inch, 14 steps and 3 breaths on solid ground, she wrote carefully, 6 steps, still mine. Lucas leaned against her arm, reading every word, his face lit up. "You did it," he whispered. Jenna let out a shaky laugh, tears brimming. "Yeah, I did." Lucas was quiet for a moment, then looked up at her with a grin that carried all the stubbornness she knew too well. "Next time," he said softly, "let's make it 7. The words sank deep, not as pressure, but as a promise. She reached over, pulled him into her arms, and for the first time in years, the silence in their little apartment felt like freedom instead of defeat. Outside, the night settled over the neighbourhood. Inside, Jenna closed the notebook and rested her hand on the cover. For so long, she had let the world define her by what she had lost. But now, step by step, inch by inch, she was writing her own story, one no rumour or diagnosis could ever take away. And this time, she believed it. Lesson: true strength isn't about giant leaps, it's about showing up, inch by inch, even when no one is watching. Healing begins the moment you choose not to give up on yourself. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this story. Your time and presence mean more than words can say, and we're truly grateful for it. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss what's coming next. We'll see you again soon, right here on Rain Inside.